Okay, so the next speaker, he is again very, very special as far as MFRT is concerned. Yeah. So he's come a long way to meet all of us so that we all learn something which is international. Because we all think, and what we have understood so far, that we all are here and we are trying to understand the practices, whatever is happening in US, the way it is happening. So the same way we can also understand. Tim has been a practicing advisor and now Executive Director, Retail Distribution Principal Financial Group. So let's hear it from him and understand the tricks and practice management, the way advisors follow in US. Welcome, Tim. Presentation.
Okay, which one?
This one.
Okay. Okay, perfect. Good? Hello? All right. First, namaste. This might come as a surprise, but I'm going to do this presentation in English only. So I had the pleasure of meeting Akhil last evening and then Ashish this morning and talking to them because it's my first trip to India. Got here about 3 or 4 days ago. And I was watching a lot of videos before of MFRT. And again, congratulations to Canik in the 9th year. It's just amazing to see this because this is very similar to what it's like in the US for our large advisor meetings. The only difference is there's usually an Indian on stage speaking and it's all people like me sitting in the audience listening. So it's wonderful to be here. But again, I was asking them, I said, why do they switch to Hindi in the middle of the conversation? What do I got to do here? Good? And he obviously then took that, went up and explained a little bit, I think as much for my benefit as anything. And the one thing that really jumped out to me as I have been observing this for the last 3 days or so is this sort of switching back and forth, is that it's actually been helpful to me because I think when it's all English, I assume I know what they're going to say, and I stop listening. And I find that I'm listening so intently to try and determine what the person is saying, particularly when you switch to Hindi, because then I can't understand it. So I have to look at the people listening to see what their reaction is and then try and put it together. And again, I have found it to be very, very helpful. I feel like I'm much more informed on what is going on. You're probably wondering why I'm here. I was sitting in my office back in April of this year, and I received an email from one of the senior people in our group, Principal International, that's responsible for driving our international business, which I'll talk about real quickly. And that email essentially was forwarded a request from our head of sales, Gaurav Goyal. And he said, hey, we've got a great opportunity. We'd like to have someone come in from the US if possible. Is there anyone in the company you would suggest? Renee had forwarded that on to me, and I think I replied to her yes within about 30 seconds. So I was personally very excited for the opportunity to come here, share some ideas. I also want to say, again, in part also because of my good friend and visiting dignitary here, Gaurav Kumar up in the front, further excitement to have him come over and help me better understand this market and learn. And I think one of the things that I've picked up in the 3 days of visiting with IFAs with yourselves is just how impressed I am overall with what you're doing. As Canik said, I started as an advisor back in 1993. I spent 5 years building my business, my practice for a company called Edward Jones. Their calling card was you couldn't open your physical office unless you went out and knocked on 2,000 doors. Introduce yourself in your local market, tell them about your business, what you're looking to do, and how you're looking to grow that, and that you want them to be a customer. And that's very different than a lot of the other firms, which was typically over the phone, not personal, and that has served me very well in life. One of the other parallels to that experience for me was I grew up on a family farm in the middle of the U.S., and the area that I moved to open an office for Edward Jones was rural as well. And the parallel, I think, is the people that I would go and speak to were farmers, and generally speaking, they didn't invest a lot of money in mutual funds. They wanted to put their money into what? Their land, because then they can raise crops. And so not dissimilar to the situation with real assets here in India and what your job is in terms of trying to get them to consider to put money into mutual funds, that was a similar conversation. And one of the things I used to do is to say, ask them if they only planted one particular crop. Do you just plant corn? No, absolutely not. They plant corn, beans, wheat, sunflowers, whatever it might be, and they do that why? Diversification, right? Again, you just plant corn or beans, and Brazil decides to blow out their bean number, price goes down, and you're out of luck. And so the conversation was really about trying to educate them about this being another crop that they could put their money into through mutual funds, in particular systematic investment plans. We use those pretty extensively at Edward Jones as well. And so again, there's a lot of parallels to what you're doing, and my job today is to try and share with you a little bit about what we're doing at Principal, and talk to you about some of the things that we're seeing in the industry. A lot of changes going on for us over there in terms of Department of Labor, and things really evolving fairly quickly. So our organization, about $410 billion of assets in our asset management, about $620 billion US overall. We've taken a slightly different approach inside the U.S. in terms of the way we've built our business. I have hired a lot of boutique managers, taken ownership stakes in them that specialize in particular parts of the equity markets, fixed income markets, and we basically let them do what they do. We let them specialize, and that in comparison with a lot of other shops in the U.S. where everything is run under the same thesis and the same thought process. We have really liked this, and our advisors like it because it's similar to how they think about building portfolios. They don't think about using one manager or one thought process. They think about using a variety of them, and it's served us very well. So back our firm's 140 years old, and I give them a tremendous amount of credit. As you can see, we are smack dab in the middle of the U.S. in Des Moines, Iowa, which is about as far from New York City and East Coast America as you can possibly get, and we think that there's a benefit to that. Now, we have an office in New York City. It's important to us. We have offices all around the U.S., but back in the 1990s, we made a real conscious decision that there's going to be a lot of growth outside the U.S., and you can see where we've spent our time, energy, and money in terms of where we're spending our resources and looking to grow. And it has served us really well. And the reason why, I mean, take a look at this. Back in 1990, in terms of the value of the $5.9 trillion for the U.S., still number one in 2010. China jumps over us, and congratulations, in 2050, you guys hop over us as well. I mean, that's real. I mean, I think one of the questions that I've received most often from everybody here at the conference and in the 3 days of travel is what do I think of India? What's the opinion back in the U.S.? And obviously Modi was there back, I think, in June. That helped awareness. But again, the U.S. generally speaking are very inwardly focused. And so what I would say to you is I wouldn't necessarily get overly concerned whether someone in Des Moines, Iowa, or wherever. They'll find out, right? I mean, they're going to find out. The growth is coming. And I think you've just got a tremendous opportunity in terms of your role in helping to drive that. What we try to do, we couple our expertise in retirement and pension savings, focus on strong markets, and work with strong partners. And that's what we're trying to drive. And I think the thing when you think about if you're going to work with Principal going forward here, we've had some challenges, but I think we're well positioned. I think my advice when I go back to Des Moines is, we should sort of stay out of it. We've got good people here, and we need to support them. We need to invest in this market. We need to invest in you and support you and help share some of the things that we're doing, because I don't think they're dramatically dissimilar to what you guys are doing. Growth rate, it's been fantastic. And again, lots that's been driven by the markets that we're involved in and the execution of the people that we have there. Moving on. Now, talking about some of the things that our advisors are facing in the U.S., I think appropriately titled The Big Squeeze. And if you look in the middle, increased pressure on advisor value propositions and business economics. On the far side, investors are demanding fee-based models. They're looking for a wider range of ways to engage with their advisors. And there's obviously increased fee sensitivity. From our standpoint, regulators have jumped in pretty dramatically with the DOL regulations, which essentially are pushing more transparency and disclosure out in the marketplace. And from a competitive standpoint, again, the advisors that are rising to the top are delivering a different type of client experience. They're using technology pretty aggressively, and scale has become increasingly important. Back in 2015, this is what we would say was really the way, if you thought about the advice value stack, alpha generation from an advisor perspective, manager selection, and how that goes about being built, finishing up at the top with financial planning. It is becoming a lot more complex as we move into the future. Managing the money, and this presentation, as far as I know, will be made available to you, because I know this is a lot to try and take in. Achieving goals, peace of mind, and fulfillment. And we think that there's really three things that are driving, that you need to be focused on. Number one, driving better outcomes, build digital into your DNA, and create a sustainable, enduring firm. Let's take a look at those all pretty quickly. In terms of better outcomes, it's about changing the conversation. And I'll show you how we focused on that in the U.S. Adopting a fiduciary mindset, becoming a buying agent. I think the role of the advisor in the U.S. is really that. Instead of selling something, you're sitting around on the same side of the table as your client and helping them to evaluate the options that are out there, help put together portfolios that deliver the outcomes that they're looking for. So for us, focusing on outcomes is this. Everybody that I know is not dissimilar from my father. My father was a farmer, is a farmer. How old is my dad? 77 years old. And when I started in the business, he gave me a simple directive, which was beat the bank and don't lose my money. Okay? I mean, pretty straightforward, but that's what he was focused on. And so individual investors, we've determined, aren't necessarily concerned whether it's large cap or it's mid cap or it's small cap or it's whatever. What they want to do is know that they can generate enough income to pay their bills, medical bills, mobile phone replacement, whatever. How are you going about doing that? Generating income is about putting together all of the ways that you can generate income. It's not about having them understand how municipal bonds or preferred securities work. It's what do they do for them. Managing volatility, again, hasn't been much of an issue, and your only volatility is upside volatility. But a day will come, and again, I would encourage you. I get a lot of conversation in the 3 days about direct business, and hey, what do you think about that? What I think is that if anybody says, hey, I don't need you, I'm going direct, you take down their name, and you wait until the market gets crunched, and then you call them up and say, do you want my help? Because they're going to need your help. So yeah, I'm focused on that, focused on protecting purchasing power in the face of rising inflation. So again, changing the conversation, the best advisors in the U.S. with the largest businesses, I would say, again, what's your unfair advantage? What's your approach? What's your expertise? And what's your specialty? I have opportunity to go to the top producer meetings at some of the major firms, Raymond James, Morgan Stanley, Merrill Lynch, And the biggest advisors, generally speaking, are not broad. They are very focused on a particular part of the market. Now, it might be a particular employer in an area, and they're experts in their retirement plan and how to roll the money out of there, and they get referred by everybody because John or Joe or Keel is an expert in that particular company. And they say, you need to talk to John because he knows this. So what's your specialty? And again, I know a lot of you are like, hey, my specialty is trying to survive and build a business, and that's important, but at a certain point in time, think about what's important to you and where you can build your cohort. I heard a gentleman talking earlier about the digital presence. Where can you make an impact? Moving on. Build digital into your DNA. This is critical, and it's jumped up. And if you think about digitizing the client journey, the sales process, client onboarding, ongoing planning, scheduled reviews, the more that you can make that a digital experience and get the client involved there, obviously, with what's going on with mobile and everything else, it's going to be a real positive for you. And I think you'll start to see more and more, even from us, around the digital experience at Principal, and I know other firms are doing that as well and engaging online. I was sitting at the lounge with Akil last night. He was engaged in a chat with advisors while he was having a glass of wine there and answering the questions in an open forum. I mean, and how powerful that is to have 2,000 advisors online engaged with you and being able to do that in a way that allows you to leverage your time. And again, I think that's critical as we think about how you go about building your practices. Creating a sustainable, enduring firm. You know, in the U.S., this is really important because a lot of our advisors are reaching a stage in their life where they're thinking about what am I going to do next in terms of retirement. And crucial there, creating productive advisors, getting youth into this business, and then also defining your approach to M&A. One of the things that we've spent some time on recently is helping advisors understand the value of their practice and how they go about making that more attractive should they decide to sell that off to someone else and get them involved. And that's one of the things that Garv and I have talked about is maybe providing some of that information to our team here locally to help you have a conversation about how to make your practice more valuable. All right, keys to productivity. I'm almost done here. Maximize technology, focus on planning, working on teams. One of the things since I started back in 1993 working by myself, most advisors at that time, that was it. They're sole proprietors, run their own business. I would say now predominantly the largest advisors in the U.S. have teams of people. There may be a lead advisor, but they have multiple people that specialize in different things. They may be younger, they may be female, different ways to go about leveraging what they do. And we really think that that's important as you think long term. Outsource your investment management, specialize like we talked about, and make sure that you're segmenting your clients to make sure that you're continually upgrading and or passing those on to other folks. I think this is my last slide. So in terms of achieving scale, your strategic decisions are rationalizing your open architecture. The second one I think is important is limit your customization. One of the biggest issues we've seen over the years with advisors is that for every client that they work with, they do something slightly different. And once you get 10 or 15 years out and you look and you've got, thousands of clients and everybody owns something slightly different, that's a nightmare because you can't keep track of it, you're not productive, and you can't just immediately respond to somebody how their portfolios are doing. So again, we think that's going to be real critical for you. Leverage your segmentation and budget money to your technology vision. Best practices, digitization of your service and back office, collaborative investor experience. Some of the best advisors that we have, they have client advisory boards that they put together of their best clients, and they meet 2-3 times a year to get feedback from them on how you're doing. We think that's really important, because many times you assume that you're hitting the mark or something's important to you, it should be important to your clients, and it's not. And sometimes it's really easy what they are looking for, what they want. And finally, align service versus operations skill sets, etc. In closing, you may, I don't know how many of you know this, but we changed our brand here within the last year. and moving from a triangle to this swirly P that we've got going on here. And the idea behind that was really changing the way we're thinking. Number one is to make us more attractive from a digital perspective, but it's really from a branding perspective about driving human. And that's the idea that when you think about digital or robo, the biggest thing we got from advisors was, hey, that's taking me out of the equation. And the answer is, it's the combination of both that makes it strong. There's a study that was done recently about these supercomputers that are playing grandmasters in chess and beating them. But what they determined was the strongest combination was combining the supercomputer with the grandmaster, and they couldn't be beat. Because the grandmaster could tell the supercomputer what to focus on, instead of just running all these permutations and calculations on things that didn't even matter. And so I think the same thing, we feel the same thing applies for you as you're looking to build your business. Again, take advantage of digital, leverage that up. And I'd also like you to consider leveraging principle in your equation going forward. I am pleased to learn from you and take that message back of growth and prosperity in India, and I'm looking forward. I've already committed to a number of people that I can't get back soon enough. I love the food. I would also say, if you're having dinner with me or lunch, I like it spicy. I've had so many people in the last 3 days they don't want to give me the mint chutney because it's too spicy. They're concerned that I'm going to get too hot. I like the mint chutney, so I'm going to have it. So anyway, it's a pleasure. I look forward to talking to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. May I request, where is, from Raipur, Arunji?
No President Trump.
Okay. Is there? Subhashji, please come and. Yes.
Yeah,
so we also have a special session with him at 3:30, which is on practice management and questions and answers. Mm-hmm. So please use that opportunity to meet him and his team.
Here you go, sir. Oh. Good.
We'll also special thanks for the presence to Mr. Gaurav Kumar from Dubai. Please. Thank you, sir. And Mr. Andrew, please. Mr. Andrew Smart from Principal US. And Mr. Lalit Viz. May I request Dibyendu to please come up and. Thank you for being our gold sponsors. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir. Moving to our